Welcome to MMA Fan Guys. My name is Luke Pace, and welcome back to everyone who's already a subscriber to the YouTube channel. If you're not already a subscriber to the MMA Fan Guys YouTube channel, please subscribe so you can see more great interviews, including the one coming at you right now. Coming back on the show, having been on the show before, is a Pittsburgh-based local amateur MMA fighter training out of Stout, Pittsburgh. It's Maximilian Jarrell. Max, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Luke. Good to be back. It's been a while. It's been like a year or
It,
two.
it has. And in that time, you've gone from a fresh faced 19-ish, 20-year-old kid to a guy who looks 35 with that beard. You look good. You look good. So you've aged up.
Thanks.
Obviously, you now have a full beard. It's beautiful. Welcome back. What's the last year been like before we jump into the fact that you are 2 weeks away from your next MMA fight for 247 Fighting Championship, their event, 247 MMA at the venue too, January 31st, but we'll get to that in a second. What's the last year plus been like for you?
A lot of ups and downs. Competitively, it was tough just not being able to fight, I'm sure I'm not the first guy to go through that. A lot of people struggle getting fights sometimes. Um, Part of it for me, the first half of the year was just dealing with a lot of kind of chronic illness that I had. I had it when I was fighting in 2024 in like November, and it got real bad in December right before I fought Drew Landefeld and that kind of thing, trying to deal with that in the beginning of the year. And then towards the end of the year, just trying to get fights and couldn't get anyone to say yes. So that part was a bit frustrating. It was, I've only been fighting now since 2023. So that was kind of the first time I've had to deal with like the frustration and the mental battle of like, I just can't get a fight. I can't get out there. Um, but in the meantime, I took a lot of time and worked a lot on the holes in my game, specifically just competition grappling, just getting used to uh, grappling in a competition setting. Um, I started to feel like towards, my last two fights, I was really just getting comfortable on the feet in the cage. And I was obviously that's where I'm best. That's where I want to be. I like throwing hands. But that was where I started to feel really comfortable. And I just didn't have the comfort yet in a like competition grappling setting. And so I started to get that down last year and I felt pretty good about that. So it was frustrating, but I still got to get some competitive energy out through grappling and yeah, so a lot of up and downs, but a lot of learning, a lot of experience that while I was going through it, I was frustrated and annoyed, but at the same time, in the back of my mind, I was like, this is going to be good long term. This is experiences that I need to get right now, that it's better I get these now early in my career than, you know, 5 years down the line when it could really affect me more. So
Sure. Well, it's great that you've kind of learned through the frustration of not being able to get a fight while still staying busy and grappling. And like you said, kind of going through some of the struggles that fighters go through. You currently have a 2-2 record in MMA, and I believe you've had a couple Muay Thai fights. What's it been like training at Stout Pittsburgh? That's been your home gym since your start. And kind of how's the development, uh, over the time working at Stout Pittsburgh?
I mean, anybody from Stout's going to tell you it's nothing short of amazing. You know that. You've talked to a lot of Stout guys. We've been around for a while. Um, but yeah, that's where I started. This is Stout has become more than like my gym. It's not just a place that I go and train. I mean, I've been doing Stout. I've been at Stout, between 4 to 7 days a week since I was 16. I developed like I grew up from a teenager to 21 being where I am now in Stout in different buildings and with different people around me, but this similar infrastructure. Um, this is all I've known. I grew up in this environment. I grew up in this gym, and it's a big part of the reason, not just that I'm as good as I am and I have the skills that I have, but the person that I am. It's been very heavily influenced by the environment at Stout, which I like to think is very positive. I've turned out to be a pretty good person. I got some flaws, but I think that I'm a product of my environment, and the environment being Stout is a very positive, um, conducive to learning. It's just a good place to be, for fighters, for people like myself who not just train and fight, but also teach there to the people who come in for their first week. I think it's just a very positive, welcoming environment. Um, and it fosters a lot of growth. A lot of our guys, I think you can see people who come to Stout, and it's not like they're the same fighter a year ago that they are now. It's a very we all push each other to grow a lot. Um, that's the biggest thing I think is it's not just a place where good guys go to stay good. It's a place where people can go and whether you're good or bad, you go there and you get better. And that's the biggest thing that I think of when I think of Stout and training there consistently. It's just it's all growth. It's constantly growth.
Well,
Yeah.
that's a great recommendation and commercial for Stout. Obviously, Stout has multiple gym locations. I think one time I was talking to Coach Mike Wilkins, and I think they start as young as 5, maybe
Yeah.
6. We'll say 6
Yeah.
in their program, and kind of have a feeder program all the way up. Not to mention teenage, like when you joined at 16, all the way up to somebody who fights at your weight category at the pro level is Lucas Steel City Siebert and Luke the Martian Martin, plus of course yourself and dozens of other fighters. Really a great place to develop. Let's talk, since we've got your background and caught up on your training and all that, let's talk about your upcoming fight, January 31st for 247 Fighting Championship inside their arena, the Sunny Days Arena, which is fantastic, at their fourth ever MMA, 247 MMA at the venue event. What are your thoughts just about, because I can't remember. I don't think you fought at the venue. I would guess you haven't. You've been out.
No, I
What's your
haven't.
what's your thought at fight at the venue for the first time, and then we'll move in to talking about your opponent Joey Perry as we
Yeah.
get there.
I'm super excited to fight at the venue. For the longest time I wanted to fight. I think last time we talked, it was before I fought in Murraysville, I
Okay,
believe. It would have been
sure.
2024. And that was awesome because I don't know if they've broken the record or not, but as far as I know, at the time, Murraysville was the biggest poll that 247 had ever
Yeah,
done.
yeah, it was huge.
Um, and you could feel it, the energy in that place that night was awesome. And I'm someone who I'm blessed with I don't ever get uncomfortable under the lights. I fight it because I want to have as many people watching me as possible. Um, I would fight if it was just me and a guy in a basement, but I wouldn't really care as much. I like fighting in front of the crowd. I like to be um, an entertainer as well as a fighter. So to have that massive crowd in Murraysville was huge. And even before I started fighting, I always said I wanted to fight in Monroeville. I got to do that last December, which was awesome. Again, it was a well put together, but just a fun environment to be in.
Mhm.
So I've kind of crossed off the two places, at least locally, that I'm like, I really wanted to fight for. And then I've had plenty of times where I haven't gotten to fight at the Sunny Days Arena, but I saw them building it. Um, and then I've been there 3 or 4 times for teammates of mine who are fighting. I've been in the back, I've been in the walkout area, I've done the walkout with cameras and stuff. Um, and it's a cool venue. I love venues that have like the upper balcony bit, where
Yeah,
people can stand up there and look down into the cage. I think that's the best view, I think. I think being up close and kind of sitting where you guys get to sit during the fights is cool because you're right there in front of us. Um, but I think being able to sit above the cage and just
yeah,
look in and see what's going on, that's the best view, in my opinion. You get to see everything going on there and you can see both sides and you're not getting like the bars and stuff stuck in your face. I love that. And so I'm super excited to fight there for that reason. I think that you can tell that that venue was put together for fighting. You can tell that they put that together with the cage in mind and everything, and the seating, all of it just feels like an environment designed for fighters, which I think is super cool. And in terms of just like I'm someone, Lucas is the same way. You mentioned Lucas, Luke Martin. I'm someone who uses a lot of visualization, I understand that half, if not more than half of the battle is mental, you know? And so being able to have already done that walkout before, obviously not fighting myself, but done the walkout to the cage, been in the venue before for highs and lows, felt the crowd, seen the energy. Um, I've already done that a bunch of times. And so I feel like even though I haven't fought there, I've already gotten to experience all of those feelings in different areas, in different ways. I've gotten to feel all that stuff already. So I'm very excited to get the fight there. It sucks that I wasn't able to be on like the inaugural show that they did there, but you know, better better later than never, right?
Sure.
So I'm excited. I'm very excited to get to fight in that venue. I think it's going to be a fun night
Well, it's
for sure.
fantastic that you know the venue and you know the intensity. And I agree. I think the upper deck area, which I believe they sell as table seats, there's tables
Mhm.
up around the top, and there's a good diagram you can know when people are buying tickets at 247fighting.com. And of course, they could choose your name to support you when they're buying tickets to be there in person. You could choose where you're going to seat. But I agree. I think the upper balcony level makes it feel a lot more like a fight venue, which is fantastic. Let's talk about your opponent. Joey Perry is 3-0. You're 2-2, so you're coming into your fifth fight. He's coming into your fourth fight. It's at the amateur level. It's a very like good amateur fight up matchup. Is this happening at the advanced amateur rule set? Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
and talk about both. I guess both the advanced amateur rule set, which is 9 minute fight versus 6 minute fight. So
Mhm.
longer fight, 3 3 minute rounds. It's for some people it looks like pro because you won't wear shin guards. That's how a lot of fans know that it's amateur pro, but you won't have shin guards, but there will still be some amateur rules, but you will allow ground and pound. So what are your thoughts on the rule set and what are your thoughts on Joey Perry himself as a matchup?
So as for the rule set, this will be my third time getting ground and pound, second time fighting with no shin guards. Um, Ground and pound is great. The rule set itself, like the way that we train, again, at Stout, the way that we train, we don't do like novice rules and then we have advanced amateur rules. Like if I go into the practice room on like a hard practice, I'm going 5 5s and I've got Lucas Seabird on top of me and he's not throwing ground and pound. You know
Right.
what I mean? If he gets me down, I got 4 minutes to fight on the ground and he's throwing ground and pound the whole time. That's just the way we train. We train for pros and then we kind of, for lack of a better term, dumb it down to whatever rule set that we're in at the time. But for me, the biggest thing with advanced AMI is the 3 minutes is great because it's a longer amount of time. When I fought in Morgantown, it was still 2 minute rounds and I lost a decision because the kid was made a great adjustment and was able to get me down and he couldn't hold me down. But if you have 2 minute rounds, a guy gets you down, the
Mhm.
process to get back up could take 45 seconds.
Yeah.
That's the round right there. Like you guys come out, that's half the round, if not more so. With 3 minutes, that extra minute, especially fighting someone like Joey, who I know is going to be trying to get me down. I'll get to that more in a minute. But he's that gives me a lot more time to work, a lot more time to flow in there, and I'm not someone who has to worry about cardio or getting tired over 3 minutes because again I'm training 5 5s. I'm my ability to go 3 3s is just how much do I allow myself to go ham in the first minute, how much do I keep it under control. The biggest thing for me is the shin guards. I hate shin guards. I think one, it just looks cooler. You get to walk out and feel
Sure.
like a pro. There's always something in the back of your head when you have to walk out to the fight with shin guards where you're just like, this kind of looks lame. You know, Getting to walk out to the cage with no shin guards, you just feel cooler. And it's also, as someone like myself, I like to throw a lot of kicks. I consider myself a very good kicker. Um, it's Having shin guards on it takes a little bit more gas to throw them. It takes a little bit more energy, you get a little bit more tired, and it just doesn't have the same impact. If I'm wearing shin guards and I throw 100 kicks at someone, they can block 100 of those kicks and be kind of okay. But without the shin guards, you block a couple of those kicks, your forearms are going to be pretty jacked up.
Mhm.
Um, so for me, I just really appreciate not having to wear shin guards anymore. That's the biggest thing for me. And the 3 minute rounds, the rule change, that's all great. I think it all favors me. Ground and pound, obviously, you have someone like Joey who's a wrestler. So having access to ground and pound in theory would favor him. Um, but, he needs to get in a position to make that ground and pound useful
Mhm.
in order for it to work. And that's where I come in, is not letting that happen. Right.
Exactly,
Um,
that's true. And
yeah.
talk about your matchup and where don't give away your plan, but what's your prediction versus Joey? You mentioned that you have some things to share about him as a wrestler, and obviously, is a 3-0 record. What are your thoughts on Joey specifically as a matchup against you?
Yeah, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but I actually asked for this fight
Oh,
specifically, both to Hunter and Joey.
no,
So first of all, with Joey, obviously Joey's a Mat Factory kid. Um, Stout cross trains with Match Factory a lot. So between
yeah,
me and Joey, as far as I'm aware, there's no bad blood. I got a lot of respect for Joey. I actually, I told Hunter Joey's last fight was November, I believe. It was November 8th. And I told Hunter before that, I was like, if Joey wins, I'm gonna ask him afterwards if he'll fight me because I was having a hard time getting matchups. And I figure if Joey wins, which I figured he would, he goes 3-0. That opens him up to advanced
yeah,
Dammy, but he's another 35er with a good record. I figure it's going to be tough for him to get matchups as well.
mhm,
So I was like, why don't we just, you know, fix this on both ends? I'll just ask Joey to fight me. And I did. And initially, we didn't think it was going to happen because it was like, we don't want to, cause any issues with the gym, yada, yada. We want to make sure everything stays friendly between Match Factory and Stout, which it still is. Um, but after some talking between him and his coaches and me and mine, I think we all came to an agreement. We're like, it's amateurs, it's not professional. No one's going to care about it in a couple years. Let's just get the experience. It's a
mhm,
fun fight for the fans. Me and Joey are placed up pretty high on the card for a reason. I
yeah,
think that everyone knows that anyone who knows us knows that it's not going to be a boring fight, right? It's going to be exciting for as long as it lasts. Um, and I just, I think that going out of my way, I wanted to make that happen. I wanted to get that fight with him because, it's a good matchup for both of us. It's a good experience for both of us, I should say. Um, Stylistically, I'm not gonna give away too much of the game plan, but I will say this is the most confident I've ever felt in the amount of studying and game planning
mhm,
that I have done for an opponent. Um, I feel pretty good about how much I've broken down everything that Joey has to offer. There's one or two things that he does pretty well, but for the most part, I'm not expecting him to throw anything at me that I don't see on a daily basis.
sure,
Um, and I think I've got a pretty solid game plan for what to expect and what I'm going to throw at him in there. Prediction wise, I've been saying this for a while. It bothers me that my wins never came by finish.
mhm,
I've made some pretty big changes over the last like year or so that I think are going to help that come to fruition. I'm expecting to get him out of there inside 2 rounds. I think second round TKO is what I'm feeling right now. Um, I know what he's going to want to do. There's no secret. If you guys you watch me fight, you watch Joey fight. Um, it's no secret what he's going to want to do. He's going to try and get to my legs. He's a good wrestler. I don't know if he wrestled college or just high school, but I know that
yeah,
he's a solid wrestler. You know what I mean? He's got a fast shot. He's got a nice right hand, but that's what he brings to the table. Joey is what he is. He's a grappler first wrestler. Um, I think the biggest thing here, and I don't view myself as like a veteran at all. I think the biggest thing here, though, is I've dealt with adversity in fights. I've had to come back in from dealing with adversity and win fights. And of course, I've lost fights too, but I've felt adversity in there. Joey's 3-0, but he has yet to face somebody with a win.
mhm,
He fought a debut on, I believe, somewhat short notice, and my teammate who took him to a decision. And then his last opponent was 0-2. Joey doesn't have a win over someone with, I think, the credentials and the skill that I have. Um, that's going to be a big thing. And I think that even if he goes in there with a lot of confidence, which I'm fully expecting him to do, he should be confident. He's undefeated. He trains out of a good gym. He's got good coaches, Justin Patton, Isaac. They're very good coaches. I have a lot of respect for those guys. I'm expecting him to go in there confident, but there's going to be little voice in the back of his head that's, I've not dealt with this kind of adversity before. I've not dealt with someone of this level before. It's a big jump up for him. His last opponent, no disrespect to Travis, it just is what it is. Travis should not have been there with Joey on that night. That's my opinion. I don't think Travis should have been in there with him. This is going to be the first time I think Joey goes in there with someone, and he's going to have after the first minute or so, he's going to realize like, oh, This is several steps up from what I've been in there with before. Um, and he's going to have that little voice in the back of his head that's like, can I push through this? Can I deal with what's coming? And I know I can. I've won, I've lost, but no matter what, I've felt that adversity before. And not just in the training room, but in the fights, I've felt what it's like to be like, this is tough right now, but I'm going to keep going. Um, he's going to have to deal with that for the first time. He's going to have to answer those questions for the first time in there with me. And I think that's going to be a very dangerous task for him, is being faced with those questions while I'm in front of him, doing as much as I can to hurt him, you know?
Well, that's an incredible breakdown, not only on your plan and kind of how you
Yeah.
feel that you enjoy matchup, but also it's a great breakdown on why, and I agree with you, why this is such an important matchup for the fans. Like, there's really no other questions to ask. I'm just kind of summarizing that it's a fan-friendly matchup, and I think it's always fair. Like you said, you've looked at a lot of his tape. You've really broken down what he's done in his fights. Clearly, one of the beautiful things about amateur, and you nailed it, was it's all about experience, and it's also all about the fact that an amateur fighter just like you hasn't fought in some time. Your
Mhm.
game plan is constantly evolving and adapting. So a lot of times, amateur fighters are figuring things out. Obviously, it's fair to say that Joey hasn't fought anybody with a win. I'm guessing that's not for lack of trying. I think he's trying to fight people. Clearly, he took your fight,
He
but
is now.
he,
He is
he
now.
is. So
Yeah.
but I agree with you. I think that's one of the reasons why the fights happen. You get to fight an undefeated guy. So if you get the win that you're confident you'll get, it's great experience for you, but it's also great on your record that you beat undefeated guy. If he goes in there and takes a loss against a guy with two wins, it gives him an opportunity to develop kind of what he needs to work on in his game plan. And it really is a great matchup. I'm so pumped that you were the spearhead for this, both
Mhm.
to Joey and uh, and Hunter, and not to speak directly on Hunter's behalf. He's incredible as the general manager of 247. But a lot of times, fighters do kind of have to have a willingness to fight each other, right? Like sometimes there could be a perfect match, but if people don't want it, it doesn't happen. So when fighters
Mhm.
kind of have those chats, hey, you want to fight? Like it can get the ball moving in a good direction, and the gyms take it from there. So just it's been super fun having you back on. I remember when you were that 19-year-old kid debuting on the show, and now that you're an old man,
Yeah.
21, it's just wonderful to have you back on the show. As a reminder, we're under 2 weeks away, just about, and yep, just under 2 weeks away from January 31st. Going to be incredible. Most of the time, I don't fully know, but a lot of times the tickets can sell out because the venue is very, it sells quick. So get your tickets. If you're going to be away and can't come in person, then remember to get the 247 Live app on any of your smart devices, and you can still give Max Jarrell credit when you buy the pay per view. So there's two great ways to get either tickets from 247 or maybe directly from Max or from people at Stout. But thanks so much for coming on. Happy New Year to everybody. And I'm pretty sure, saying Happy New Year, I'm pretty sure this is my first interview in 2026, just because there wasn't a lot of fights over the
Yeah. Yeah.
last couple of weeks. And so it's going to be the first event, obviously, for 247 in the new year. And hopefully, you're able to kind of have a busier MMA year in 2026 than you did last year with the fights not happening. So, thanks so much for coming on the show, and best skills to you. Can't wait to see you in action January 31st for 247 Fighting Championships, 247 MMA at the venue. For see you guys then. Thanks so much, Max.